Hello everyone and welcome to my presentation. Thanks for joining me. My presentation is going to be about the school library, and more specifically my research question is, how does the school library/librarian affect student achievement? This topic sort of evolves from my original idea to focus on just the library as a beneficial resource for students into a more intense look at libraries and where the value comes from. And through my research, I found that the true power of the library came from the librarian, and when there's collaboration between the librarian and teachers, which I'll get into a little bit later. To begin, an overview of what will be my presentation is first a brief history of the school library, the link between libraries and student achievement, definition of a teacher librarian, and the implications for the classroom. What is a library? Most of us have been to libraries before, know what a library is, but the definition of a library is a room that houses collections of books, newspapers, films, and music to be borrowed, read, and studied. A brief history of the school library. Previous to the 19th century, there wasn't much regulation. And before the establishment of school libraries, most schools would come to agreements with local libraries to meet whatever literary needs they may have, with textbooks, books for the classroom, any other reading materials that they may need. It was not until the 1920s that the National Education Association developed standards for elementary and secondary school libraries. It was shortly after this that some state and local governments began to fund school library supervisors, issuing school library handbooks, and publishing recommended reading lists. After World War II, American school libraries began to include non-print media, and as a result, many libraries transitioned into media centers. Most libraries today will be libraries/media centers because the computer labs are housed within the libraries, and that's become a main focus of most elementary school libraries. The Great Society legislation of 1965 was part of Lyndon B. Johnson's War on Poverty. It brought funding to many areas of the country through acts like the Elementary and Secondary Education Act of 1965. Through this funding, the number of public schools with libraries increased from 50% in 1958 to 93% in 1985. So now nearly all schools would have a school library, and that wasn't that far back in our history, so school libraries are a fairly newer concept. So, during my research, I found that there have been several studies that have established a positive correlation between student achievement and the access to the school libraries. The findings of these studies corroborated research conducted in numerous other states and found the same patterns of school library characteristics linked to higher student achievement. And then links have been made between the access and utilization of school library and academic achievement of students. So students who received excellent library instruction and inquiry-based learning were more likely to score advanced on their reading and writing tests. Students in 7 states had higher test scores when they had access to a trained librarian, cooperative lesson planning, and the librarian and the classroom teacher collaboration. So I think it's important to focus on these studies, how they measured achievement. So a couple of them measured it with reading and writing test scores, and a couple measured it by looking at the standardized test scores in the language arts areas. And then also what the studies uncovered was the different characteristics that the libraries needed to have in order to have a positive correlation with the student achievement. So several of the studies measured student achievement by analyzing how frequently the students use the libraries, when the librarian taught students, the size of the library staff, And then there's a quote here, when libraries are better equipped, better staffed, better maintained, and are available more hours to students and faculty, students experience higher achievement. A link that all of the studies have made is that the level of education and involvement of the school librarian was often a contributing factor in school success. That specific role was that of a certified school librarian. A state certified school librarian varies state to state because there are different requirements for different states. For most, it's required to complete a master's level certification program in school librarianship and the state level school librarian certification. And for others, it's required to hold both a school librarian certification and a teacher certification. In contrast, there are others who work in an elementary school who do not have the same credentials, but they are also a valuable resource. It's just not the same as a certified school librarian. Another quote here, besides school administrators, certified school librarians are among the only staff members tasked with serving all students and all staff. So that leads us into the implications for the classroom. So with a certified school librarian, teachers can find an ally and a huge resource to help with planning instruction, implementing instruction, and with problem solving. For example, Katie McNamara is a teacher librarian at North High School in Bakersfield, California, director of the teacher librarian program at Fresno Pacific University, and president of the California School Library Association. She's helped her colleagues in multiple ways that have helped with instruction and benefited students. So in one, she helped a teacher who was having an issue with her students not analyzing their sources. So in collaboration with the teacher, she created a diverse list of resources on a topic that the students were interested in, and then presented those different types of resources, such as graphs, articles, photos to the class, and then allowed them to review the multiple sources and see the value in the different types of sources and the value of reading multiple ones in order to get the most information. After that activity, students were able to see what resources had what information, what was missing for some, and they were able to understand the importance of analyzing multiple resources. Another was during COVID. Many teachers found themselves behind the times and struggling to make classes work in an online space. Many teachers had their librarians or media center clerks to turn to and assist them during that time. Through collaboration, they were able to provide materials to students and assist teachers in using the technology in order to reach and teach their students. So a quote here from McNamara. When COVID-19 took hold, I made sure to familiarize myself with the new platforms of our school and the school was using, and made a plan to help prepare my future colleagues. So when librarians and teachers collaborate through lesson planning, getting assistance with technology, professional development, the certified librarians that can teach lessons like McNamara did, and showing students different resources and how to do different things, engaging students with reading programs, author visits, family engagement, events, book fairs, etc. It creates a positive environment for students and helps them to achieve. So when libraries and librarians are seen as valuable and given time and resources, they can help students to achieve and to learn. So in closing, I would just like to reiterate that there was a positive effect to students when they had access to libraries that were well-funded, well-staffed, and who had librarians who were passionate and who collaborated and worked with teachers. If teachers work with the librarians, collaborate together, create lessons, there can be a positive result for students. That is the end, and thank you for joining me again.